Welcome to So Very Easy. My name is Laura, and it is time for the free follow-along block of the month from Quilting Confections called Rainbow Sorbet. Now, there are 18 blocks total in this quilt, and we are on number 14, so we are definitely on the home stretch. I'll put a link in the description so you can get pattern number 14, and let's get going. The follow-along quilt has been made with beautiful sorbet colors. And today is no exception, and this time we have a beautiful yellow and pink combination. I've also been doing it with a scrappy variation. I started with this big floral print from my stash and brought in all of my scrap colors to match. As I've been doing it, I haven't been worrying about the color combinations. I've just pulled whatever I've had in to make the block. Where they've had a light background, I've been using this dark as the background, so the block has been quite different. For the background fabric, which has been this white, we need one strip 2.5 inches by 24 inches, and we're going to need 4.5 squares, which we will cut out of this larger piece. Fabric A, which is that centerpiece, is going to be a big 4.5 inch square. And to make the arms of the star, we're going to be using this yellow, and we're going to need 8 squares at 2.5 inches. And these little blocks that are going to circle that star are going to be this great pink. And we're going to need one strip at 2.5 inches by 24 inches. So let's start by making these 4 cornerstones. We're going to be able to take these 2 long strips that are 2.5 inches by 24 inches. We have the background fabric and we have fabric B. Put them together right sides and stitch a 1/4 inch all the way along one side. Once those 2 strips have been sewn together, we're going to be able to subcut this, and the strips are going to be at 2.5 inches. And there's a couple of ways that we can do that. We can take this and press this fabric towards the darker one, and then from there, cut 2.5 inch strips. Or you can cut them before they're pressed. And having this pressed well and starched before I do any sewing, it will help me hand press, and that way I don't always have to go to the iron. So once I've stitched those 2 pieces together, I'm going to take this back to the iron and I'm going to press it. And that will take that seam and sort of stick it in between the fabrics so there's no bulk on that seam at all. As I'm pressing, I do make sure that my strip stays straight and that it has no twists in it. Once the edge is straight, I'm going to cut my 2.5 inch pieces, and I'm going to use a long ruler. From here, my first cut is going to be 2.5 inches. I'll put the ruler on and make sure that it's squared up at 2.5 inches. So both my fabrics are together, and I cut. Without removing that fabric from underneath, I'm just going to pick up the ruler and go to 5 inches. So I'll have another 2.5 inch piece. I'm going to constantly be lining up all of those lines. Leaving those fabrics, I'm going to add 2.5 inches to my ruler, which is going to give me 7.5 inches. Everything is still nice and straight under that ruler, and cut. Adding another 2.5 inches, now I'm at 10 inches. I just lift up this ruler and have it go over top of the fabric so it's not actually touching the fabric. It's just sort of floating over top of it until I get to the mark that I want. Adjust that ruler even before you put it down. The fabric underneath is not being dragged with the ruler because the ruler has been lifted up slightly. Put the ruler down, hold, and cut. You will be able to do a lot of pieces this way, continuously adding the 2.5 inches. If you find that you can't keep the ruler straight along the edge, you might have to straighten up the edge again. Just like you did the first cut, you might need to cut the second one to keep those blocks all the right size. But you can do as many blocks as stays straight under the ruler. And even though I can do the math at 2.5 inches, you can always just count on the ruler to keep yourself straight. Once the last cut is done, I'm just going to add my 2.5 inches. I have my half, 1, and 2. And I'm going to put my finger right above the line that I need to move the ruler over on. So I don't have to recount, my finger is going to be my mark. Once I hit that line, I can put the ruler down, make sure it's straight, and continue cutting. And each time, I'll count 2.5 inches over, put my finger right on that mark, and move the ruler again. That strip has now been cut into 8 2.5-inch segments. I'm going to finger press one of those strips to the dark side and a second one to the dark side, and then just twist those two and place them together. I'm going to be able to match up those seams and sew a 1/4 inch. Once the 4 units are done, we're going to be able to finger press those open. We're going to have one seam going in one direction and another seam going into the other. And those threads are going to come apart in that seam allowance. Now when you finger press, you're going to end up with a little 4 patch in this corner. And we need 4 of these. To make those star points, we're going to start off with a square and add on the arms. So we will need those 4 4.5-inch square background fabrics and 8 of the 2.5-inch square star points. And on those 2.5-inch squares, we need to draw a diagonal line from corner to corner. Start with the 4.5-inch square background fabric facing up. The placement of the line needs to go across the corner. When we put this corner on, we need to stitch along that line. If you stitch right beside it so it's touching the line versus right on the line, so it's literally one thread over, it's going to give a little bit of a space when we turn this block. As we turn this block to a corner and finger press, there should be no fabric hanging on the outside or stuck to the inside. What we're doing is we're replacing the corner with a different fabric. Finger press that over. We can now lift up that little piece now that we've checked it and trim off this extra. Once the one corner is done, we need to do the second corner. We're repeating what we did on this side, just on the opposite corner. We still have a 4.5-inch square. It just has 2 corners on it. We now have made one of these little points. We need to do 4 of them. This block is the same as a flying geese block. The difference is we've started with the square versus a rectangle. We now have all the components done to make that block. The 4 patch at 4.5 inches and the star points at 4.5 inches. We start with that center and put the stars around, and then the corners. The corner blocks are going to be so that the white is on the outside. Having that white on the outside is going to give a circular shape around the star. If these pink pieces were in the corner, it will give it a whole different look. What it does is it extends the arm of the star and fills in part of the star. So the white needs to come to the outside. From here, we just need to sew the rows together. Match up the right sides and stitch. Then when that edge is done, we'll be able to put the next side on. I like to sew both pieces on and then finger press. If you're not sure which direction to press, turn your block over so you're looking at the seams. We want to have seams opposing each other so that they'll nestle together. By turning it over, it sort of gives you a better idea on how the block will fit. And in this case, these seams automatically want to go towards the center. So I'm going to let them stay that way, which means the 2 outside edges need to be pressed to the outside. We can now sew those last 2 rows. I now have a pretty little star block. The scrappy version is the same block, just opposite in a color variation. Where the background has been a light fabric, I have been using a dark fabric. I have no idea the name or where I got it, but it has been a fun fabric to match up. So my light is now my dark. My 4 patches are the same. So if the background fabric is here and mine is the dark, it will be going there. And I had a little pink because each of these sizes are 4.5 inches. I can switch them up. Let's start by switching those corners. Now, let's switch up the star arms. I can flip those arms so they're going right out. The star now looks like a square. And by switching those corners one more time, it now looks like a square, and a square within a square. I'm going to sew this block together the way the original pattern says. The scrappy block is now done. Same block, but what a difference. So block number 14 is now done. It's a quick, pretty star block. Thank you for joining me today on Sew Very Easy. Feel free to subscribe, and as always, come on back. Let's see what we're sewing next time in the sewing room. Bye for now.